Hello and welcome to Solar Alberta's 2024 Solar Series. Today's session is called Affordable Financing to Green Homes and Businesses in Alberta. We were delighted to have so many people register for this event. Please note that we're going to be recording this webinar for future distribution. My name is Heather McKenzie and I'm the Executive Director at Solar Alberta. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that I'm hosting you today and working day to day from Amiskwaciy-Waskahigan, also known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homelands of the Métis Nation. Treaty 6 territory is the traditional gathering place and home of many Indigenous peoples, including the Papachees, Nehiyawak or Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux, nations whose ancestors have cared for and nurtured these lands since time immemorial. Today we'll be hearing from Stephanie Ripley, Barbara Daly, and Justin Smale. Following their presentations, there will be a question and answer period in which you can all participate. The entire session will wrap up in an hour and a half. In an effort to increase accessibility, we have enabled closed captioning for this presentation. You can turn the captioning on in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. During our Q&A period, we're going to use the Zoom Q&A for the questions rather than the chat box, so please enter your questions in the Q&A section. Also, please click on the little thumbs up symbol to upvote any questions that you like. Before moving forward, we're just going to do a quick poll to get a sense of who we have joining us today. So please take a minute to answer the question popping up on your screen now. And while some are still doing the poll, I encourage you to take a minute, pop your name, land acknowledgement, and any contact info you're comfortable sharing in the chat now and throughout the event so that others can look you up on LinkedIn or email you, and hopefully some new relationships can be formed. All right, let's end that poll and have a look. As I suspected, we've got a lot of solar curious folks here today. Welcome. This is the place for you. Some solar enthusiasts. I always interpret that as micro generators likely, but you might be looking to do some energy efficient upgrades as well, which will be on the topic today. And then a lot of industry professionals. So thank you for joining us today. Always great to have you aware of what's going on in the financing world to update your clients. I'll close that out. I'm just going to share a little bit about Solar Alberta before we jump into the presentations. This is actually our 33rd year of operation. Albertans have been excited about solar for quite a while. We're a nonprofit society that is dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. We do so by advocating, educating, and serving as an industry and community hub for solar energy. Our membership is made up of over 270 individuals and over 155 businesses. And we also have over 21,000 followers. We provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory through our website. In this way, we act as a bridge for installers, suppliers, and other solar-related businesses to connect with their customers and clients. Our directory gets over 48,000 hits a year. You can see a screenshot of the directory here on this slide, and there's a link to it in the chat. In addition to our website services, we run a number of educational programs, including our solar show, this solar seminar series, and a number of in-person and online networking events each year. Recordings of our previous solar show sessions and seminars can be found on our Solar Alberta YouTube channel. Our next industry-oriented workshop is going to take place on September 18th at 10 a.m. And we're going to be learning about best practices for solar employers in Alberta. We're featuring a couple of our living wage employers who are members, and we're taking registrations for this workshop at the link that's going in the chat. In addition to the free public education we provide, we also provide affordable professional development classes and workshops for those in the solar sector or those transitioning into it. Very excited to share that we have an Alberta Renewables Training Information Night on September 25th at 7 p.m. Going to feature Alberta post-secondary educators who have solar-related programs. Registration for this event can be completed through the link in the chat, and there'll be some energy efficiency content there as well. This fall will also once again be running a number of online courses for solar industry professionals or those transitioning into the sector. Our online courses are Tuesday and Thursday evenings on 3 to 5 nights over 2 to 3 weeks. And you can register for all of our upcoming courses at the link in the chat. Recordings of our full slate of courses are also available for sale alongside our paid workshops in the solar training video section of our website. In other education-related news, pleased to announce the third Solar Alberta Diversity Scholarship. This scholarship is intended for equity-deserving individuals. Through the scholarship, we're seeking to promote inclusivity, amplify historically marginalized voices, and encourage diverse participation in the solar and related sectors. We'll be awarding $2,000 to one equity-deserving individual registered in an Alberta training program that aligns with our mission. And we're accepting applications until October 31st. Eligibility details and the scholarship application are available by clicking on the link in the chat. And we're super thankful to Enbridge for sponsoring this scholarship. And in addition to providing education about solar, as many of you already know, we do advocate for solar as well. We are currently rising up for renewables. We have free lawn signs available for pickup in 10 municipalities. And we're also actually offering delivery for free now in 8 municipalities around the province. Really thankful for our dedicated volunteers to make this free delivery possible. We have template letters for you to use on our website asking the Government of Alberta to eliminate the new and discriminatory buffer zones that they have established for renewable energy. Your support with our advocacy efforts is very important. You can click on the link in the chat to make a free sign order or find our template letters today. And if you're not already, just want to encourage you to join Solar Alberta as a member. We constantly are evolving our member service offerings, some of which include discounts on our courses and workshops, access to member-only content and newsletters, and more. Individual membership is just $35, can be purchased at the link in the chat. And if you're looking to support us in other ways, consider volunteering or donating. The links for both of those options are also going in the chat as well. Now, without further ado, I'd like to take this opportunity to give a big shout out to Simple Solar for sponsoring this session today. We really couldn't offer this amazing free content without the support of our sponsors. So thank you to Simple Solar. We're always interested in developing more partnerships for our events. So if you or your company want to work with us to educate the public about solar or solar-related technologies, don't hesitate to reach out. Now I'd like to introduce our sponsor for the session, Todd Peterson from Simple Solar. Todd's going to tell us a little about Simple Solar and introduce our presenters for the day. Welcome, Todd, and thank you very much for your support.
Thank you very much, Heather. Really pleased to be here on behalf of Simple Solar. Simple Solar works primarily in Southern Alberta, but we've been doing so since 2006. We also, have had projects in other provinces. The best way to describe Simple Solar is using 3 words: expert, ethical, and enjoyable. We're experts in solar energy generation, both PV and thermal. The founder of the company, Tom Jackman, ran the solar program at CEIP for 10 years and taught many of the solar installers now working in Southern Alberta. All of our field staff are professional electricians, and they care deeply about their work. So after 18 years, 3 months, and 24 days, we now have several hundred very happy customers. Each one of them is a reference case for our work, our integrity, and the value we bring as a solar contractor. We're also a fairly happy, optimistic bunch. Customers tell us the experience they had with Simple Solar is 10 out of 10 on all levels. Our installers are competent, friendly, and respectful. Our office staff are professional and cordial, and all of us have very healthy senses of humor, you'll discover. We recently installed the largest residential solar system in Calgary, a 96-panel, 40-kilowatt system generating 45,000 kilowatt hours per year. However, we also recently installed one of the smallest systems in town for a recent widow who doesn't know how to use a computer or send an e-transfer. All that to say, we really aren't too big for our britches. Simple Solar also has a sister company for commercial solar work called Soul Power Projects. Soul Power has extensive warehouse rooftop experience and solar carport experience, having built the largest privately owned solar carport in the province for an automobile dealership looking for hail protection. So in summary, yes, there are several solar contractors to choose from, but your due diligence in choosing one wouldn't be complete without asking Simple Solar or Soul Power Projects for a detailed proposal. Our website is simplesolar.ca. So thank you, and thank you to Solar Alberta for organizing this webinar and for advocating for our industry. And also thank you to Heather. You've done so much great work. So thank you to you as well. I'd now like to introduce our speakers. Stephanie Ripley. Stephanie has a background in project management and operations in both the solar PV and technical theater industries, and holds a BFA in theater design and technology from York University and a diploma in alternative energy technology from NAIT. She is also a certified energy manager in training through the Association of Energy Engineers. Through her current role as program manager for the Clean Energy Improvement Program, otherwise known as CEIP, with Alberta Municipalities, she supports communities working to reduce their community greenhouse gas emissions by offering financing for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. Alberta Municipalities is the program administrator for all municipal CEIP programs in Alberta. Stephanie lives in Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, where she is an avid gardener and year-round bike commuter. Next speaker will be Barbara Daly. Barbara has been a program manager with the City of Edmonton since 2006. Some of her projects and initiatives with the City of Edmonton include the 311 Administrative Consolidation, City's IPCC 2017, Renewable Energy Task Force, Energy Transition Climate Resilience Advisory Committee to Council, Clean Energy Improvement Program, CEIP, just to name a few. Prior to joining city administration, Barbara provided project management services in the transportation, finance, information technology, marketing, and telecommunications industries. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and is an avid beekeeper. Finally, we'll have Justin Smale. Justin is a corporate environmental specialist with the City of Calgary who focuses specifically on climate financing initiatives to reduce community energy consumption and GHG emissions. Justin has over 10 years of experience working on energy reduction in the government sector. He currently manages the City of Calgary's Clean Energy Improvement Program, which aims to reduce the financial barriers that homeowners face when implementing energy efficient upgrades in their homes. I also just recently learned that Justin does not really like eating breakfast, but he loves coffee. So if you are looking to, butter him up or have a meeting, just bring the coffee. He'll be very pleased with that. Okay, so now I'll just pass the mic over to Stephanie to begin the presentation. Thank you very much.
Super, thanks, Todd. Got excited about my video and I turned it on too early. So I'm here now. As mentioned, I'm Stephanie Ripley, and I'm the program manager for the Clean Energy Improvement Program at Alberta Municipalities. Ultimately, what I'm going to provide is a high-level overview of the program, where it's being offered in Alberta and how it works. And then both Barbara and Justin will provide a bit more detail about their specific programs in Calgary and Edmonton, or Edmonton and Calgary, I guess, reverse that. If you do have questions throughout the presentation, I already mentioned, but just pop them in the Q&A, and then we can get to them during the Q&A session. So a little bit about Alberta Municipalities. It's been mentioned a couple of times now. It may not be familiar to everyone on the call. So for those of you who don't know, we are a not-for-profit association that's been serving communities in Alberta since 1905. Ultimately, Alberta Municipalities works with municipal leaders to advocate for solutions to municipal issues and to support communities by providing services and helping them thrive and be more resilient. So an example of that would be the Clean Energy Improvement Program that we administer alongside various municipalities in Alberta. So we partner with any municipality that wants to deliver a CEIP program to help administer it on their behalf. All right, so now that you know who we are, and we'll get a quick overview in this first video about what the Clean Energy Improvement Program is, and then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Want to lower your utility bill? Invest in energy efficiency or renewable energy? The only question is, how do you finance it? Your municipality, and Alberta Municipalities, has got the answer. With the Clean Energy Improvement Program. The Clean Energy Improvement Program gives residential and commercial property owners access to competitive long-term financing for a wide range of upgrades, like adding insulation, replacing furnaces and hot water heaters, upgrading doors and windows, or even adding solar. But the big benefit: you can get financing for up to 100% of project costs with no extra bill to worry about, because the payments are integrated into your property tax bill. That means that if you move before your upgrades are paid off, the cost stays with the property, not with you. And the next property owner will continue to benefit from the lower energy bill. Lower utility bills, an upgraded property, and jobs in your community. It's a different kind of financing for renovations that make a difference. Learn more about the Clean Energy Improvement Program at ceip.abmunis.ca. Want to lower?
Don't need to watch that again. We'll move on to the next slide. So a bit more detail about CEIP with Clean Energy Improvement Program. We'll probably refer to it as CEIP or CEIP moving forward, just so we don't have to say the full thing every time, but CEIP is the acronym. Really, CEIP isn't your average financing tool. It's specifically designed to increase the uptake of energy efficiency, retrofits, and renewable energy installations on private property. So through CEIP, property owners borrow funds from their municipality to pay for the upgrades on their properties, and then they pay the money back over time through their municipal property tax bill. It's a model that has proven successful in many other jurisdictions in the United States and Canada over the years, and it's been operating in Alberta since 2021, with a number of different municipalities that have programs in market, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The second piece here is that CEIP is different from other financial instruments because the repayment, or what's called the Clean Energy Improvement Tax, is tied to the property and not the property owner. So as mentioned in the video, that means that when the property owner sells their building or property, if it has a CEIP tax on it, the new owner takes over the repayment of that tax, and they also continue to enjoy the benefits of the upgrades that have been installed and the associated cost savings. Because of the way the repayment is structured, municipalities can typically offer a lower interest rate on repayment than many property owners can get from either a bank or another lender. The third piece here is that CEIP is a municipal program. Municipalities choose whether they'll offer the program by passing a CEIP bylaw, which both Calgary and Edmonton have done, and any municipality in market. Each municipality does have a slightly different program. At the base, they all function the same, but each municipality is able to choose slightly different eligibility criteria or ways the program functions. All programs in Alberta, though, are ultimately informed by the legislation. So there is provincial legislation in place that provides a base operating status for all programs in the province. Where we come in as the program administrator is when municipalities want to get their program up and running after they've passed their bylaw, they work with us to design and develop their program, and then we help administer it on their behalf or alongside them once the program launches as the program administrator. So we get this question quite a bit, why would somebody choose CEIP over other financing options or other lending options that are out there? There's really three key benefits that we want to talk about today. The first one being that typically CEIP offers lower interest rates than other options out there because municipalities that are lending the funds have better access to lower rates, or they have access to lower rates than the average individual resident does, or commercial property owner. So each municipality sets their own program interest rate based on where they have sourced their capital. The interest rates can be found in the terms and conditions for each program. So if you're curious for what the rate in your municipality is, you can go to their CEIP page, open the terms and conditions, and the interest rate information will be there. Property owners can finance up to 100% of the project costs. So we know that those upfront costs are a barrier to people doing energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades. So this really helps reduce that barrier. The program also offers repayment terms of up to 25 years, which makes the monthly or annual payments more affordable. And CEIP financing can be repaid at any time. So altogether, those things together are really a pretty compelling package and not something that exists anywhere else in the market. The second piece here is that property owners are supported by the program administrator throughout the process of submitting their application, completing their project, and paying contractors for work. We're really here to support you through this entire process. So if you have questions, we're only an email or a phone call away. You'll also receive support from either an energy advisor or an energy engineer through the process of completing your project as an EnerGuide home evaluation for residential properties, or an ASHRAE Level 2 energy audit is required to participate in the program. And so you'll have that technical information available to you to help you decide which upgrades you want to complete. The third piece here is that transferability and financing. So we've already mentioned this a couple of times, but it really is the key distinction of what makes CEIP different from other mechanisms. So if one of the reasons that you haven't implemented clean energy upgrades on your property is because you don't know how long you're going to own that property, you don't know if you're going to see the payback of the energy savings are going to get you compared to what you've put in initially as that upfront cost, CEIP just eliminates that barrier entirely because that financing is tied to the property and not you as the property owner. If you sell your property, the new property owner can take on that repayment and continue to enjoy the benefits of the upgrades that you installed. Financing upgrades through CEIP is also a great way to reduce the energy use in your home or business, save money, and reduce impact on the environment. So there's really 5 major steps in completing a CEIP project in a municipality. We'll at a very high level here walk through how this works. The first step is completed by the municipality when they pass their CEIP tax bylaw and find capital to fund the program. So this is pre a program actually, and before a program actually launches in a municipality. They'll then work with us to develop and launch the program. And at step 2, the program is launched. This is where property owners can start participating. The property owner can go to their local program webpage at ceip.abmunis.ca, or you can type in myceip.ca as well. We'll get you to the same place. You read the program terms and conditions, submit a pre-qualification form, and at this stage, we will check the eligibility of the participants, so the property owner, and the property itself. We don't want you to get too far down the path of planning your project before you actually know whether you're eligible to participate. So that's what's happening at pre-qualification stage. If you're deemed eligible, then we'll send you a pre-qualification approval. You'll go away and complete either a home energy evaluation or an ASHRAE level 2 energy audit if it's a commercial property and you're planning to do energy efficiency upgrades. Then you'll decide on which upgrades you want to complete based on the information that's coming out of those energy audit reports. Select the qualified contractors that you want to work with to install those upgrades. And then at step 3, you'll submit a full application form. So this really gives us all of the information we need about the project that you're planning to install. And with that information, we'll check to confirm that the financing you're requesting is within the limits of the program, that your upgrade that you plan to install is eligible, and then we'll move you through, if everything is approved, to signing the agreement. So at this stage, you'd sign a financing agreement, or what we call the Clean Energy Improvement Agreement with your municipality to firm up your financing. You'll also sign a project agreement with your qualified contractor and with Alberta Municipalities. So that's really the service agreement for the work that's going to happen. When upgrades are installed, so really between steps 3 and 4, we may not hear from you a huge amount. You go and work with your contractor to install your upgrades. Once everything is done, then the property owner would submit upgrade completion documents to us, confirming that the upgrade is done and their contractor needs to be paid. As long as everything matches what's in the agreements, then we'll pay contractors directly for the work that's happened. This step 4 may happen multiple times if you're planning to do multiple upgrades to your property with different contractors. So you'd submit that upgrade completion form multiple times. We'd pay contractors. Once all of your upgrades are complete, then your municipality is going to record that clean energy improvement tax on your property. You'll begin that repayment through your property taxes, and you'll start enjoying the savings of the upgrades that you've installed. Depending on where a municipality has sourced the funding for the program, as funds are repaid through property taxes, they can become available again to finance new CEIP projects, which is why this is ultimately a cyclical diagram. It doesn't happen everywhere, but it is an option for municipalities depending on where they're sourcing their capital. So talking a little bit about property and property owner eligibility, when we get at that pre-qualification stage that we talked about, this is really what we're checking. In order to be eligible for the program, at minimum, property owners need to be current, or they need to be the current legal owner of the property that they're applying to upgrade. They need to be current on their property tax payments and in good standing with their municipality. So those are the basic things that are being checked at pre-qualification stage. The property itself also needs to be an existing building, so new builds are currently not eligible for the program, and it needs to meet the eligibility criteria of that specific municipal program. So in the terms and conditions, it'll lay out the terms for eligibility for each property. Most residential programs in market currently are only available for low-rise residential properties. So single-family homes, duplexes, townhouses, and row houses, or multi-unit residential buildings that are lower than 3 stories. But the City of Edmonton is the exception to this. Their new permanent program will allow multi-unit residential buildings that are larger than that to participate as well. The City of Edmonton and Sturgeon County also have a CEIP stream for non-residential and farmland properties. So this is what we call our commercial stream. So those are the two municipalities where there's a commercial stream available as well. And so for those, the property eligibility is obviously a little bit different. It would be commercial buildings that are privately owned and are within the municipality. Or under commercial farmland buildings also apply there. Eligible upgrades. So what is considered to be eligible to be financed through CEIP? To be eligible for financing, the upgrade does have to increase energy efficiency or the use of renewable energy on the property. Only upgrades listed on the CEIP website are eligible for CEIP financing. They also have to be installed by a CEIP qualified contractor. So there's a directory on our website of all the contractors that are currently CEIP qualified contractors. There is the option if you wanted to work with a contractor that's not currently on the list, as long as they become qualified before you submit your full application form, that's an option as well. In terms of the upgrades, though, there are a wide range of upgrades eligible for the program. So things like HVAC equipment, windows, doors and insulation, solar PV, lighting and controls, ground and air source heat pumps, water heating, all of these things are listed on our website. You can check the eligible upgrades list for both the residential and the commercial programs to see whether what you're planning to do is eligible. In terms of what costs and expenses are eligible for financing, there's really three different buckets of eligible costs here. So the first being the capital cost, that's the actual cost of the upgrade and the cost to install the upgrade itself. The next two are sort of associated costs. So those are things like professional services. That would be something like an engineering study if it's required for your project, or the residential home energy evaluation or commercial ASHRAE level 2 energy audit. Those would all be considered professional services. Those are financeable. Incidental costs are also financeable through the program. So these are things that are not necessarily part of the actual install of the upgrade, but are required for the upgrade to be able to be installed. An example of this would be something like repairing your roof before solar PV gets put on the roof, or maybe mold remediation before you do a wall insulation upgrade or an attic insulation upgrade. So things that really have to happen before the upgrade can be installed, but aren't part of the upgrade itself. There is a cap on the amount of incidental costs that can be financed through the program. So they can only be financed up to 15% of the project's total capital cost. As for terms, interest rates differ from municipality to municipality, as mentioned before. Most programs have a maximum term length of 20 years, or whatever what we call the effective useful life of the upgrade. So what that means is how long we'd expect the upgrade to last. That number, so the length, the lifetime of the upgrade is listed on the eligible upgrades page as well. So if you're curious about what the term for an upgrade you want to finance would be, that can be found in that effective useful life section. So it would be whichever is less. It's either 20 years or the effective useful life of the upgrade. For residential projects, the projects do need to be between $3,000 and $50,000 to be financeable through CEIP. For commercial, the limits are a little bit higher and differ from municipality to municipality, but can be as high as $1 million for non-residential and $300,000 for farmland properties. One thing to note here as well is that the financing amount, the maximum cap of financing, is ultimately also limited by a property's property tax, the property taxes paid in the previous year for residential and non-residential properties. For farmland, this limit doesn't apply. But if a property owner paid, let's say $2,000 for residential, paid $2,000 in property taxes last year, then their annual CEIP tax can't be more than $2,000. Not the total tax, but the annual amount that they're going to pay on their property taxes. Any projects that are above these limits can still participate in the program. It's just that the excess amount that's not being financed needs to be paid directly by the property owner. So stacking with other programs, we get this question a lot as well. CEIP financing can be used in conjunction with any other program available, whether it be federal, provincial, or municipal incentive programs or financing programs. So something like the Canada Greener Homes Loan Program, you could access financing if you're doing a really big project You could access financing through CEIP and through Canada Greener Homes as well. So this is a great option if somebody's looking to do a deep energy retrofit on their home and the CEIP financing won't cover the entire cost. You could access the Canada Greener Homes loan program as well. The town of Canmore has a solar incentive program that can be used in conjunction with CEIP. Town of Banff has some residential environmental rebates. The city of Medicine Hat also has the Hat Smart program. All of those can be used in conjunction with the CEIP program. There are also quite a few CEIP programs specifically that have their own rebate portion of CEIP. So it's worth checking within your municipality to see if you participate in CEIP, you may also get a rebate alongside your CEIP financing to help reduce that total cost. So who is actually offering this program in Alberta? This is a big, long list. Over 50 municipalities have expressed interest in adopting CEIP in their municipality. This is the list of those that are currently offering or working on the program and will be offering it soon. You can head to myceip.ca to learn more about the programs that are currently in market. 28 have passed CEIP bylaws. We have 20 residential programs and 2 commercial programs currently in market, with the Edmonton and the Sturgeon County programs being the commercial programs. The municipalities on the left that are listed are actively working on program design at different stages, and we expect them to all be launching within the next year, with the ones towards the top being sooner and the ones towards the bottom likely being later into next year. So if you're curious about how to get started, there's a QR code here that you can scan. If you're watching the webinar later, it should still work. This will take you to the main CEIP page. You can check out the program locations, whether CEIP is offered in your municipality or not, read the terms and conditions, and then you can start by submitting a pre-qualification form. If your municipality is not currently on the list of municipalities that have programs or will soon be launching programs, we encourage you to reach out to your municipal elected officials and let them know that you're interested in the program, and they can reach out to us to start talking about how they would go about passing that bylaw and getting the program implemented in your municipality. So there's just this, I'll be available for questions at the end as well, but if you do have questions, you can email us directly as well at hello@myceip.ca, and that'll get you in touch with us at Alberta Municipalities for anything further. So I am going to pass it over now to Barbara Daly from the City of Edmonton to talk a little bit about the specifics of the Edmonton program.
Thank you for doing all the heavy lifting, Stephanie. So I just have a few slides. I wanted to take this opportunity to share with interested parties. Looks like a majority of solar enthusiasts on the call. What's going on in Edmonton, what has happened, and what's coming next specific to CEIP. So let's see. We don't actually have a program in market at the moment. We are not available to apply to. We're at the tail end of our pilot program, and we're expecting to launch the permanent program within 4 to 6 weeks. So this is still timely. But I thought it might be useful to share some highlights, the results from that pilot program. As Stephanie mentioned, we have a residential and a commercial stream. In our residential pilot, which launched just a little over 2 years ago, we have 66 active projects, and they're either completed or almost complete or just about to start their work. And that 66 includes several that went all the way to net zero. And also, as Stephanie referenced, they stacked the CEIP financing, these net zero homes, stacked our financing, the CEIP financing, with other forms like the Canada Greener Homes loan and grant when it was available. So bigger projects have happened, not entirely under CEIP, but certainly with the help of CEIP. Average investment is $35,363, and there's some of the common upgrades that have been chosen by residential applicants. An EnerGuide audit, pre and post, are required, I think, for everybody's program, and it really does help a homeowner understand what the opportunities are and what their choices are with the financing available. From a commercial perspective, we only had 3. It was a really great learning opportunity for the City of Edmonton team that commercial decision-making might take a little longer. The business owners maybe need to line it up with their budget cycle. These can be large amounts, the qualification process may be a little longer, and then some time, especially because City of Edmonton requires a minimum of 3 upgrades, and some time to actually get the upgrades done. We had lots of interest. Only 3 projects actually went ahead that could actually meet our timelines, unfortunately, during the pilot. But we'll be in touch with these commercial property owners when we launch the permanent program, and ideally we'll be a partner to their retrofits in future. So 3 projects completed, average investment just under $500,000, and they're the common upgrades there as well. So pretty pleased with how that went. One of the commercial projects that went through CEIP actually was heading towards net zero. I believe they're in the process of being certified net zero. They used the maximum of $1 million of CEIP financing, and they installed a few things. They were already a pretty technologically advanced manufacturing building anyway, and used some add-ons and some additional technologies in order to get to this ideally net zero target. So it just kind of gives you a feel for the potential. We've engaged with a few different building owners where $1 million might not be enough. And there actually is a mechanism within the regulation that should a building owner require or request more than the $1 million, there is a path to get there. It's through a ministerial order, and the city would ensure that it could source that additional funding, but $1 million could be, in fact, increased if necessary. So we're still technically mid-pilot, but we brought some results to council over the last 2.5 years. And in January, council felt confident enough, I think, that a permanent program was of interest to property owners in Edmonton. So administration was directed to come back. And on May 13th, we brought that bylaw for a permanent program back, and it received 3rd reading. So we are busily taking care of the last few details, updating the terms and conditions, things like that, and we expect to launch kind of in the next 4 to 8 weeks, and that'll be the permanent program. So all of this information is still timely. The permanent program will be very similar to the pilot, but the purpose of a pilot is to understand what didn't go well, what could be better. We've got $20 million reserved, so a little more constancy, a little more certainty for contractors as well as property owners that the money will be around for a long time. We're actually going back to council the moment we hit 80% of the 20 million committed. We're actually going back to council to say, by the way, 16 million committed, how do you feel? And then a decision could be made to add more funding if that made sense. Our program basics are slightly different from other jurisdictions. We all follow the regulation, and we do what Stephanie tells us to do. She's a wonderful partner. Alberta Municipalities is a wonderful partner. But we do insist in Edmonton on a minimum 3 upgrades. We don't want this to be a single technology financing program. We love for solar to be combined with a heat pump, for example, or with insulation and windows and doors, something that reduces the consumption and generates the renewable energy is kind of the sweet spot from where we're standing, what we'd like this funding to be used for. The exceptions to that minimum 3 would be if you're a returning CEIP property owner, you could do just 1 at a time, or if you're less than 3 upgrades away from hitting net zero, then 1 or 2 would also be acceptable. We added the opportunity for advances or deposits through a mechanism. Contractors and property owners were asking for that, so we're able to go to 10%, and that seems to be well accepted in other jurisdictions. Stephanie mentioned a residential and commercial stream. Stephanie also mentioned this, but we've had some applicants come to us whose contractors were not already CEIP applicants, and it is quite easy to be added. And if a contractor already has that relationship with their property owner, if they can qualify, which is not difficult, then it's quite easy to become a certified CEIP contractor. The eligible upgrades list is long and diverse, and it continues to grow. So there's that flexibility as things change. This list can continue to grow, and homeowners, commercial business owners can take advantage of that. And then the last item I'd like to mention is coaching services. So with 3 upgrades, that can be complex. If a property owner is not familiar with the technology or they're busy, there is some complexity that maybe could be improved upon. The applicant experience could be improved upon maybe with some coaching. So we are going to experiment in Edmonton with residential coaching services, and up to 40 projects will receive coaching services in one form or another. And as we go through that little pilot, if there is evidence that coaching services actually does improve the overall experience and potentially the number of properties that participate residentially, then there's potentially a future for a lot of potentials in my sentences here. Potential for long-term coaching. There is something else called commercial coaching, and it was just launched, and it's free, and it's being handled by Alberta Eco Trust through an accelerator program. I've got the link here. we're working with them as well, but what they'll do is these coaches will work with the building owner to understand the end-to-end retrofit requirements. CEIP may be a solution, but these coaches will actually have access to a range of different programs that might work well for these commercial and MURB, multi-unit residential building property owners. So there's a lot of activity in this space, some connected, some disconnected, but we're enthusiastic about it. There's been lots of uptake, and we're looking forward to a well-received permanent program. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague in Calgary. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara and Stephanie, for covering all that ground. You folks laid a lot of groundwork here that I'm just going to briefly touch over the City of Calgary's viewpoint on. So why we want to offer a CEIP program is it removes that barrier for homeowners to conduct those energy efficiency upgrades that they normally might not be able to finance on their own. So it's that nice mechanism that gets them into the game to begin with. And it offers a few other, it fits into a few other areas that the City of Calgary is going for. So it lets those homeowners complete those energy efficiency upgrades, which reduces energy costs for them, but also reduces community level greenhouse gas emissions and energy use, and it helps grow that retrofit and energy efficiency industry within Calgary as well. It fits into the larger program goals though for Calgary and how we want to get to net zero. So it's one of the more popular programs we have, but we have many other programs that are helping bring our corporate environment and our community energy to get us to that goal of net zero. And CEIP is unique in that it offers some really good ways that we can measure those goals. With the EnerGuide evaluations, it's a really convenient way for us to see what kind of impacts the program is having on greenhouse gas emissions and energy use. We can get feedback from participants and how it's increasing their knowledge and awareness of renewable energy and energy efficiency through participant surveys. We can talk to contractors through those surveys too to see how well the program is helping them along in their industry. And a small side benefit of all that is just the human side of it, where it makes people's homes more comfortable. It improves their health, helps our air quality and safety. So I'm going to get into some just specific results that we've seen in the City of Calgary. So we've had 4 intakes to date, starting in January 2023, and our most recent intake was April of 2024. We have 1 more intake planned for likely October of this year. And so far we've seen close to 700 pre-qualification submissions submitted to Alberta municipalities. Those have translated into 270 individual projects, so individual homeowners completing upgrades in their house. A little different than City of Edmonton, we don't have the 3 project minimum with our CEIP program, but we still see on average 2 upgrades per project, and around $26,000 is the total value of those projects at the moment. We've put about $7.3 million to committed projects, and we've seen 75 projects through all the way from application to completion. And just some of the quick results of that is we've seen over 4,400 gigajoules of energy saved in a year for those completed projects. And we've also seen 384 tons of CO2 reduced per year. If we want to look at the solar specific side of things, we've had over 75 solar projects completed. And those are probably our 3rd most popular upgrade in our program, behind windows and energy efficient furnaces. So through those, we've put over $2 million into the solar PV installations in the city. And solar specifically results in kind of roughly a third of our energy savings and emissions reductions in Calgary through the CEIP program. And we've had a few challenges and successes. And if you notice, that first one is the same for both, that we are a very hot ticket in town here, that demand is outstripping our supply. So our intakes have gone very quickly, where within about 10 minutes, all of our 150 or so application slots have been filled. So that's a challenge in that we want to offer more of that, but it's also a success in showing that that program is very useful for citizens and it has a lot of popularity. But like Barbara said, there's still some restrictions with provincial regulations that we're working with and would like changed. We want to make sure that the participation is equal across the city, where we don't have pockets of affluent people taking advantage of the program where it's not as firm in other areas of the city, and just helping get that knowledge of these types of programs and these kinds of upgrades built in the citizens is also a challenge right now and a goal of ours. And our next steps is we're looking at getting our residential program refinanced and back into market in 2025. Again, I said we have one more uptake in fall of 2024, so we aren't completely closed. We're still in market with that program, but we also want to launch a commercial version in 2025 as well to ride Edmonton's coattails on that front. And that's all I've got. So I will throw it back to Heather. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Justin. And Stephanie and Barbara, if you want to join us on screen, that would be great. Just a reminder for folks that we're using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen for questions. I see we already have 5 in there, so thank you for that. You can also upvote people's questions if there's something that you're particularly interested in. So that was a very helpful overview, and I'm glad to see it sparked some ideas already in our audience. Timothy is wondering, do we know how the real estate market is responding to buildings with CEIP attached to them? That is an interesting question. Thoughts on that to share? Stephanie, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I can jump in. We have done some engagement in Edmonton in particular with the Edmonton Realtors Association, and we'll likely do some more engagement across the province with realtors. So far, because the programs are a little bit newer, we haven't had that many properties with CEIP taxes actually transfer from owner to owner yet. We have had a few though. There's been, I think, 1 or 2 in Edmonton, 1 in Rocky Mountain, 2 in Rocky Mountain House for sure. And so far, no issues. So there is the option to pay out the CEIP tax at the time of sale if needed. But we've had a couple of different instances where some of them have paid it out, some of them have transferred it to the next owner. It doesn't seem to be an issue or a barrier. When we've engaged with realtors, they've been really receptive to the program and understand the value and the benefit of the upgrades that are being installed. Yeah, just, you know, plan to kind of continue that engagement to make sure that realtors are aware of what CEIP is and of the benefits going forward.
Yeah, and I suppose Alberta is not the first place in the world to have a property assessed clean energy program. Yeah. So there would be real estate folks all around the world who could probably be leaned on for support if your realtor doesn't know what they're doing. Yeah. Barbara, anything to add there in the Edmonton context?
The only thing I'd add is that we, in each of the financing agreements, is already a blank sort of section within the agreement that allows for transferability. So we set the financing agreement up with the property owner nicely, so it's already prepared to transfer if that's something the owner wants to do in future.
Wonderful. And anything further on that one, Justin?
We've had one agreement transfer from one to another on a property sale, and it was a very smooth process where the real estate agents were pretty understanding of what our program already is. So that was all a good plus. And on a different aside is we have started our engagement with commercial stakeholders for the commercial side of the program. And the real estate sector is very keen on providing that engagement and helping steer that that program moving forward. So we've had a lot of interest from different parts of that sector.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Kim has a question about Jasper, so I'll throw this one to you, Stephanie. But will the town of Jasper funding include rebuilds? Oh, yeah, of course, with the fire. I guess that's very timely. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to even talk that through yet.
We haven't. I know Jasper is working on their bylaw. The time was, I suspect it's paused for the moment with all of the other work that they're doing. So we'll be in touch with them again, hopefully soon, to discuss how their CEIP bylaw is going. It hasn't gone through council yet, so we haven't had any detailed discussions with them about what their program will look like. But I do suspect that will be part of the conversation when we start looking at design as to whether that might be possible. I guess to put some context around why new builds are not eligible currently is that in order to meet the legislated requirement of increasing energy efficiency or the use of renewable energy on the property, the renewable energy piece is maybe a little bit easier to solve, but in order to confirm that energy efficiency is being increased, there needs to be a baseline, which is why existing buildings are really easy to confirm. Yeah, okay, great, I can confirm that what's there now, what is planning to be installed is more efficient than what is there now. So there's a lot of more work that needs to go into the planning and design of a program to be able to allow a new build to be eligible. It's not impossible, but we'll be having that discussion with Jasper when they're ready and when they get there.
Yes, and sadly, I think whatever is decided for Jasper will probably have to be rolled out in the future for other municipalities as well, because this is not the first time we've had this issue in Alberta, and I suspect it won't be the last in the years to come. So thanks for trying to sort that through with them. Lisa, welcome, Lisa, our board members here. What is the application fee cost for contractors to apply to become a CEIP qualified contractor?
It's totally free. There is no cost at all. So and we've tried to make the process as streamlined as possible for contractors. It doesn't take a lot of time. We ask for some basic business information. They become trained on the program. So really becoming a qualified contractor means that the contractor understands CEIP and can help participants navigate through the program, and they understand the requirements of the program. So yeah, it's a free process for contractors. There's no cost to them aside from a little bit of their time.
A little bit of their time. And I guess as a follow-up to that, and in relation to that, are there accountability mechanisms there if a contractor goes through that process, is qualified, and then ends up being shady? I know you probably read in the news lately, there's some shady business going on out there. So what types of mechanisms do you have to address that if someone gets hoodwinked?
Absolutely. So as becoming part of the process of becoming a qualified contractor, contractors agree to abide by a set of code of conduct, qualified contractor terms and conditions, and marketing guidelines. So there's 3 very strict documents that they agree that they will follow. If we find out through, either complaints or through other means that they are not following those things, there's a very clear issue escalation framework that's set out in the code of conduct as well, that we would walk through with the contractor to try and remedy the issue first. And then if it can't be remedied, they'll be removed from the qualified contractors list. So they wouldn't be eligible to complete CEIP projects in the future.
And I suppose further to that, you have 90% held back on most of these builds, right? So theoretically, they might just not get paid, hey?
We're following the prompt payment, the Construction Lien and Prompt Payment Act. And so it basically just means there's a 10% holdback that's held for 60 days to make sure that there's no builder's liens placed on the property. So we don't have any other, the contractors, if they have signed an agreement and they have completed the work and they have paid their subcontractors, they will get paid. Really, it's the 10% holdback is a mechanism where if there's a construction lien that's been placed on a property because of work through a CEIP project, really the only reason that would happen is that if a contractor has subcontracted and they haven't paid their subs, then the subs can place a lien on the property. If that has happened, then that 10% would go to the property owner to deal with the ramifications of that. We have yet to have that happen, knock on wood, but yeah, it's more to do with that mechanism than it is about quality of work or other issues.
Yeah, this is an interesting. I mean, I see there are other questions here, so I want to get into it. But I'm kind of curious on this topic, just because it's in the news so much lately. So I appreciate you clarifying there. Kim's asking, what can be done to increase the uptake in improved building envelopes with insulation and air tightness? So what can we do to make those particular things, I guess, more popular? I know the City of Edmonton has this technique of letting you have solar if you do some of the less sexy upgrades. So I think you've already tackled that issue. Justin, do you have any other ideas for how to make some of these energy efficient upgrades a little sexier?
For us, we aren't really driving people towards one or another type of upgrade. We're more of the buffet style, where whatever will get people participating and saving that energy, we're definitely game for them doing. So that's why a lot of our popular upgrades are things like energy efficient doors and windows, which will, touch on that air tightness. But in terms of pushing any of the specific upgrades, we aren't really in the business or interested in that at this point in time.
So that's interesting to hear that, you're kind of being technology agnostic there, Justin. Anything further to add on this question around insulation and air tightness, Barbara or Stephanie?
The demystifying the EnerGuide audit, I think, via the coaching services might just inform property owners to make their own decisions. And I was surprised how many people actually included insulation when they can actually understand their EnerGuide audit from a residential perspective. That's kind of I don't want to say no brainer, but I guess I just did say no brainer. It's not that expensive and it's really effective. So understanding the EnerGuide audit, I think is key, and we're looking for ways to do so.
Right. Yeah, that there's a reason they're kind of putting things in a recommended order. And I know we're going to have Peter Amarangan coming to the solar show first week of February to talk about sequencing of retrofit, something that Retrofit Canada has been trying to coach people on, how to sequence these upgrades in a logical way so that you don't end up throwing out your windows and doors when you insulate at a later date. So it is important and ultimately, hopefully, can save people money later if they get the order of things correct. Okay, question here. What type of restrictions does the province need to remove for better success? I was going to ask that too, Justin. You alluded to this in your presentation, and I know you mentioned that there have been some challenges with the way the program's structured. I think, Barbara, you mentioned that you need a ministerial order if you want to go over $1 million. That seems like a pretty high bar for folks to have to get a ministerial order. Is there anything else that's kind of holding us up here? Because certainly, the Municipal Government Act and whatnot is something that we'd be happy to start chatting with the government about as well, if there are tweaks that could be made. Thoughts on improvements?
One tweak is CEIP is not a legitimate reason for a municipality to borrow from the government of Alberta. And it forces municipalities to go elsewhere to traditional lenders, perhaps, where the interest rate and terms might not be as favorable. And since we pass along the interest rate directly, wherever we can get the lowest cost impacts, the better. So a change that would allow municipalities to borrow from the government of Alberta for the purposes of CEIP, that change would be delightful. No pressure.
That would be great. And I know that we're really into independence here in Alberta. So no better way to become super independent than to finance our own projects and programs. That's a neat idea, Barbara. Thanks for that. Anything to add there, Justin?
No. Well, yes, I definitely will echo what Barbara said, that's a big thing that we would definitely like changed. Just a few things we're coming up against is that some of the language in the MGA is very vague on the specifics of how you can move these programs forward and what the terminology in the MGA actually means when you translate it to the ground and put it into a program. So we're coming up with a lot of areas where we just need a lot more clarity from the government on what they mean. And if they don't know what they mean, we need some changes made so that everything makes more sense to get a program onto the ground.
And the MGA, the Municipal Government Act, is all administered through municipal affairs, I imagine, which must be interesting because typically when we're talking about emissions reductions, that's not the ministry that we're talking to. So I imagine that adds an extra layer of challenge, is talking to bureaucrats who aren't in, that's not their bread and butter, emissions reduction. So having to really communicate across that barrier must be interesting. Hopefully they're tapping on the climate folks a bit. Okay, great. And Daryl, former board chair, thank you for being here. In Edmonton, I had an energy audit done under the Greener Homes program, but the recommendation was for a Hig FE gas furnace. Don't do that
High
to me,
efficiency
Daryl.
gas furnace.
Oh, okay, thank you. You did that just to bother me,
I
didn't
still
you?
speak a little bit of Daryl.
There we go. Thanks, Stephanie. Not an air source heat pump. Oh, but we love air source. That's ridiculous. Okay, do I need to get a new audit with someone who understands air source heat pumps and lists it as a potential measure to be undertaken? Excellent question, Daryl. Yeah, what about the air source heat pumps? We love them here at Solar Alberta. Why would they be prioritizing gas furnaces over air source heat pumps?
I might jump in and I'll see if Barbara wants to add anything after. It isn't a requirement in the residential program or any program in Alberta that the upgrade has to be listed on the pre-evaluation audit. So it does need to be captured on the post-evaluation, whatever the upgrade is that's done, but it's not like Greener Homes where in order for it to be eligible, it has to show up on the pre-audit as a recommendation. The recommendation really should just be make your heating more efficient, which is clearly what was there, right? And so if you wanted to install an air source heat pump through CEIP and finance it through CEIP, it would still be eligible for CEIP financing. I think you're in Edmonton, Daryl. So in Edmonton, when their program reopens.
Yeah. If you happen to know better than your energy auditor, which, I mean, it's amazing. Like I had a fella here auditing and he didn't happen to notice that we had a solar array. And I was just like, how do you do an audit and not notice that?
It's really variable from energy advisor to energy advisor too, is the thing that we have found, is that some of them are very, very thorough. Some of them are not. Some of them have more understanding of different technologies. And so the best advice I can give is if you have an idea of the upgrades that you want to complete, let your energy auditor know. Right? Say, hey, if you've already done the research and you already know, and you want to do an air source heat pump, ask them to model that for you. So that's something that I did when we did our home energy evaluation on our house. I knew I wanted to have the data of what would the GHG reductions look like or increases look like if we put in an air source heat pump versus high efficiency gas furnace, so that we had all that information to be able to make our decision. One of the things that I don't know, but one of the reasons that they may be recommending a high efficiency gas furnace instead of an air source heat pump is if it is an emissions decision. Currently, it will get better because the grid is getting cleaner in Alberta. But currently, if you switch from a gas furnace to an air source heat pump, your emissions will actually go up unless you pair it with solar at the same time. So now that will get better over the next 5 or 6 years because the grid is getting cleaner. We now have no more coal on the grid. There, it's getting better and better. So a decision you're making for equipment that's going to last 15 to 20 years, you may still want to make the heat pump decision. But it is an important factor, I think, for all property owners to have that conversation with their energy advisor and with their contractors, because the other piece of it is electricity is typically more expensive than natural gas. So it doesn't mean you will save energy. If you switch to an air source heat pump, you will save energy, but you may not save dollars. So that's an important thing to note as well. So there's a bigger discussion with air source heat pumps that should be happening with, the best case scenario is you pair it with solar. So you're generating the electricity you're using. That's sort of the best case, but.
Yeah, there's a reason we heart air source here at Solar Alberta.
But
it is very important to realize that there are people without that. The opposite, though, is true. I understand for electric vehicles. Apparently, even if you have an electric vehicle without solar, it's still better for the environment than if you have an than if you have an ICE vehicle.
It is,
so that was interesting for me to learn, that electric vehicles are maybe an exception to that gas furnace scenario you discussed. So thank you for that. I wish everybody was doing it with those good intentions and thoughts, but sadly, I have heard of a number of folks who just still don't know that there are air source heat pumps that work in cold climates, and it's like they just haven't read the news lately. Like, no, they exist. They're here. They're all around me. And they'll just tell you, no, they don't work. I'm like, no, I can hard evidence that they're here. Nav, welcome. Hi, for commercial solar energy projects, number one, application timeframe. What is the expected timeframe for the application process for commercial solar energy projects? So I think this is for you, Barbara. But Justin, I know you're thinking of launching in 2025. So if you wanted to comment on commercial timelines, that would be helpful. And then the second question Nav had was payment schedule post-installation. Once the installation is completed, what is the timeframe for processing payments to the contractor? I think you touched on that already, Stephanie, but if there's anything more you folks wanted to add there. Questions about commercial. Barbara?
So the timeline for the commercial pre-qualification and application can vary from one building to the next, depending on how far along they are with understanding their building's needs. So they need to get the ASHRAE level 2 audit. That will give them some direction on their options. And then it's a matter of going through the pre-qualification form. Stephanie's team is very, very quick as long as all of the information is there. And then the journey can be getting those 3 quotations, right? If they're not already working with a favorite or a trusted contractor, getting some competitive quotations and packaging that up to submit to the application. So I would say the timeline can vary. Stephanie, do you want to be more specific?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Barbara. And the key piece is if we get all of the information we need. So, you know, making sure that you understand the program and the requirements of submission. So, you know, if we're getting it piecemeal, it will take a lot longer to process an application. Yeah, from the time that you submit a pre-qualification form, you have 4 months in the commercial program to then submit your full application. So that the window in between there is to give you time to get your ASHRAE level 2 energy audit done if you haven't done that already, and then pull together your full application. From the time you submit your full application, if it is truly complete and we don't need to get any additional information, it will take us typically 4 to 6 weeks to get you to agreement stage, just to make sure we have all the info we need. We have a pretty high volume of applications coming through as well, and it is first come, first served. So we're not going to skyrocket anybody to the top of the list. And then from the time you have your agreement signed, you have a full year to complete the project. That's sort of the high level timelines for commercial. For residential, you have 6 months to complete the project. So just to have both of those in there.
That's interesting because some people are, I think I got a solar quote recently where you had to wait some 6-7 months before they had time to do your project.
Yeah, and there are options for extensions always. So we really encourage folks to let us know if you get a contractor that says, sorry, I can't do it in the next 6 months. We can reach out to the municipality and ask for that extension. We have yet to have somebody not grant the extension. So
that's a relief because I hear it's really hard to find enough electricians lately, and we sure don't want non-electricians doing the work of electricians. So that would be risky. Well, that's great to hear. And the payment schedule, very interesting. I know, Barbara, you and I were chatting about this briefly a while ago, but you know, customarily, you're getting asked for like 50% down payment for a solar installation. But with this program, you can only have maybe 10% if you're lucky. But I understand that that is because you're also going to have, you know, basically municipality-backed financing. So your contractors should be willing to take the risk because it's not really a risk if it's municipally backed. Is that my understanding correct? Why are we not giving more money down?
Yeah, we feel that we're pretty secure. I mean, the applicant still has to deliver on everything they're supposed to, and the contractor could get caught in the middle. I've heard of 0 incidents where that has actually happened. But again, Stephanie, her team came up with a variation where if the deposit required is greater than what the City of Edmonton, in our case, can offer, the homeowner can pay it, and they get paid back just as if they were another contractor when that upgrade is done. So they have to carry that for a short period of time.
Yeah, which might be important. Like if you're working with a startup or a new business and they don't have the money to front the purchase of the actual solar panels, you know, that could be an issue, right? Because depending on the equipment you're using, you might not, as a small startup company, which we need a lot of just because there's so much demand in the sector right now, you might need a bit more upfront. So you have a few workarounds for that, Stephanie?
Yeah, I mean, it would still mean that the participant, if it's above what the municipality allows as for deposits, the participant would still need to find a source, if that means bridge financing or something else, which that may happen. They would still have to pay the contractor directly if the contractor requires the deposit, and then they can be reimbursed once the project is done. I should note that 10% is the amount for will be the amount for the residential program at Edmonton. I think for commercial, there isn't a deposit option. So but I think this was specific to commercial, but different programs have different deposit amounts. So if there are contractors out there that are listening, or people that are not in Edmonton or Calgary, and Calgary has a different deposit amount. Again, I think yours is 30%. Is that right, Justin? 25? Might be 25 in Calgary.
15.
15. Oh no, it's all over. So it's, again, my memory is not always there because there's 20 different programs. There's quite a few that have a 30% deposit cap from the municipality for residential. Canmore is a good example, has 50%. So this is where it's worth checking the terms and conditions for each individual program about that deposit amount.
Yeah, Justin, did I hear you right? Was that 1.5 or 5.0?
1.5, not 5.0.
1.5 in Calgary. Well, and I mean this is the point I was thinking we'd get into at some point is price gouging, because I've seen it occur in two ways. One, some people are just paying astronomically high prices for upgrades, especially because folks know that they can pay it off over such a long period at low interest and whatnot. And sometimes, folks are quoting, yeah, you can have this install, but you're going to be paying 60-70% down. And then you have no recourse if it's not done well. So I guess I'm curious what you folks are doing about this sort of rumored price gouging, which I think is only really happening. When I look out there, I see two or three, a handful of companies that are maybe to blame for some of this shenanigans, but it's sort of tainting the whole energy efficiency and solar sector with the shenanigans that's out there, in terms of, really high quotes sometimes, or really high down payments. Do you folks have mechanisms in place for dealing with that scenario? I heard you mention for commercial, everybody has to get 3 quotes. Do they have to get 3 quotes for residential too?
They don't have to get 3 quotes in the Edmonton program. We recommend 3 quotes, and that's definitely going to be advice their coaches give them too. Unless you have a pretty good feel for what the market rate should be for your installation, your heat pump, that sort of thing, 3 quotes is good to just create some competition. It's remarkable the range in values that 3 quotes will bring you.
Oh yeah, even 2 quotes. Like you can see a 50% price drop just between 2 quotes. So okay, so you're recommending it, Barbara, but not requiring it. Justin, do you folks require at least 2 or 3 quotes?
No, same as Barbara said, that it's a good recommended practice, but it's not a requirement.
Okay.
But that also kind of speaks to that one challenge we have of wanting to make sure that the population has that base knowledge of those energy efficiency upgrades, so that it removes some of that price gouging or overcharging potential the smarter our population gets in this world.
Yeah, I am surprised that people would invest such large numbers without checking a couple quotes. And yet it seems to be happening, and it seems to be happening particularly for seniors, as what I've been hearing, is that people are taking advantage of vulnerable populations. So if you do change anything and make that required, let me know, because obviously we'd like to spread the word about any efforts that different municipalities are taking to kind of help people avoid being taken advantage of. Lisa has a question here. When a CEIP property is transferred to new owners, is the EnerGuide assessment or ASHRAE energy audit provided along with information related to the savings in energy costs achieved by the retrofits? This may help the new owners understand the net positive value despite the increased annual property taxes. So how does that work for you folks?
So I'll just speak for Edmonton. We don't require it. The regulation for CEIP requires when somebody puts their house up for sale that they alert of the agreement and provide a copy of the agreement. The EnerGuide audit results pre and post are not referenced. That would just be between the buyer and seller, at least in our experience.
I think there was a mandatory labeling program in Calgary, if I'm not mistaken. How's that going, Justin? Is that related to this?
It's not related to this, but I don't have enough knowledge to speak confidently on that, so I won't dabble too far in that. But on the legal issues of selling a house, I'll just reflect what Barbara said, that that's what they have to transfer to the new property owner is all outlined in the agreement and clauses that we have in there. in terms of the Enter Guide, that's definitely not in there. And one thing on that is just one snapshot in time, that the farther away from that Enter Guide audit that you get, it's going to have less and less value. Like the more the equipment degrades, the more other upgrades you do, it changes really what that Enter Guide audit is saying and able to communicate. So I don't know if it's something that we're ever going to really push to get included in any of the contract language.
Yeah, I suppose there is a bit of motivation there for people to just include it themselves if they have a recent one, because they want, assuming they want their house to sell, they probably want to show off how great it is and show all those green colors of green on their when they're selling. Thoughts on that, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think really this is where the real estate market kind of comes in, right? I think over time there will be more value placed on more efficient homes. So as our costs go up for energy, the operating costs of a home are going to become more and more important when people are looking to purchase. And I think that's something that that it's starting already in the real estate industry to a certain degree. There's more information available on sustainability and sustainable homes. And I think that's really where some of that engagement can happen, right? Is if realtors are putting value when they're touring people through homes on something that is more efficient, then there's, you don't need the requirement necessarily of having to have, and I think Justin's point is great, that the energy evaluation really is just a snapshot in time. So it may, if somebody sells 10 years down the road, it's not going to be terribly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Actually, Lisa's touching on a really excellent point here in the question box, which is what I actually love about CEIP, because it's very different than the Canada Greener Homes program. In that, my understanding is CEIP actually, you can use it to upgrade properties that aren't necessarily your primary. And so the question is, are any of the CEIP programs open to landlords who are interested in improving the energy efficiency, and I would add air quality, of their secondary residential properties to help their tenants lower their energy costs? If so, are there any protections for tenants to prevent renovictions? Oh, interesting. Yes. Anyone want to comment on that potential to use CEIP for a secondary property or a rental property? And yeah, Justin?
Sure. It's something that we're actually looking at right now. We have another team member on my community energy team who deals specifically in that area of energy equity and making sure that energy savings are kind of a universal right here. So it's something we're examining. One thing that I'll say to that is that right now we don't really have any great ways of gatekeeping and preventing any of those issues from coming up, and that landlords probably are using the program right now, or people who own multiple properties are probably using the program right now. And there's not a great way to monitor that and ensure that those renovictions aren't happening. So that's why when we're going back to relaunch refinance our program, we're going to be keeping that in mind and trying to find whatever nuance we can to prevent those issues from happening.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I had a frank conversation with someone about this the other day, because there's a lot of fear of renovictions, and I understand that in the world of kitchen renovations. I understand that in the world of other renovations, but the whole basis of the CEIP program is that your landlord is doing this to reduce their utility bills. So as long as the tenant understands the basis of the CEIP program is ultimately to lower monthly payments for the homeowner, there should be absolutely no excuse for a renoviction in this particular program. These are not typical renovations. And so I really feel like we need to draw that distinction, because there's a bunch of people who just want to hate on this program, and they think they're defending lower income people, and actually they're hurting them, because they don't realize that this is different. This is an amazing program that actually can allow landlords to reduce utility bills for renters, and the Greener Homes loan can't, because you're not allowed to support your renters and reduce their. So I actually think this is an equity-oriented program. This is a renter-oriented program. And people who are pretending that this program is going to contribute to renovictions just don't understand the program and how to talk about it, and they're fear-mongering. And so I actually think it's really important that we differentiate between the CEIP program, which is ultimately to reduce costs, and other renovations, like getting granite countertops. Those are not the same thing. And we should never allow people to talk about them in the same way because it's very misleading. Any additional thoughts, though, on that concept of using it for renters to add, Barbara? Have you seen that much in the Edmonton situation?
No, take a slightly different tack, and that is that apartment buildings where there's a single owner, either a company or a person, there isn't the ability for a renter to access CEIP any other way unless their building owner, their landlord, can apply. We love to have more MURBs. We weren't able to accommodate them in the pilot, but we're absolutely targeting MURBs in the permanent program because we can help multiple tenants at one time by working directly with just one owner who has all of these units. So some exciting opportunities when we expand it beyond that definition that single house, duplex, that sort of thing. Three-story walk-ups and high rises.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring everyone in. Don't just leave this for the single family homeowners. That's great. Thanks, Barbara. Stephanie, anything to add there?
I might just add on the commercial context of things that there are a lot of commercial buildings that have the structure of, I always forget the name of this, it's a triple net lease, which basically means that the property or the tenants are actually paying their share of the property taxes. And so CEIP is designed perfectly for that scenario where there's an argument to be made that for landlords to do it that aren't going to see the benefit of the energy savings, a lot of landlords aren't going to make that decision, right? Because it's really they're going to be paying the property taxes, that the tenants are going to be seeing the savings on their energy bills. With the commercial side of things, with the triple net lease structure, it actually means that the tenants will be paying their portion of the property tax, so their portion of the upgrades, and they'll also see the savings. So there's actually more incentive, I think, on the commercial side for landlords to participate in CEIP and do this because there's less risk for them. It does mean that it might cost, they need to have that discussion ideally with their tenants, but it's an easier program to sell to landlords on the commercial side of things.
Yeah, well, and I would say on the residential side too, as you've mentioned, it is about that conversation. So if you are a tenant who wants to benefit from your landlord implementing the clean energy improvement program, then you need to work out a cost benefit agreement. So if they are paying your utilities and the property tax bill, then it's fine. But if you're paying your utilities and they're paying for the property tax bill, then you might need to offer to contribute to that instead, right? So it's about working out that balance and making sure that you're both contributing. I also noted, Barbara, that you're all talking about coaching services. And like you said, Stephanie, I think the issue here is less renovictions when it comes to CEIP, and more so, how do you get a landlord to actually be willing to jump through some of these hoops when at the end of the day, they might not be the one benefiting as much as their tenant, especially if the tenant's paying the utility bills. So I was thinking if I was renting right now, I would actually offer to be the coach and offer to do the hoops and say to my landlord, hey, I'll jump through the hoops for you or with you and support you in that so that I can see the benefits on my utility bills. So it's good to know there are going to be other coaches out there, but there is space, I think, for renters to advocate for themselves too, and to offer to do some of that legwork so that they can see the benefits, especially, like you said, if they're the ones paying the utility bill at the end of the day. So super important questions, lots of sort of negotiations to be had, and not easy ones, but I think the fact that we're even in this space and that renters aren't excluded from a program is really important because they have been excluded from the federal programs to date. Lisa has another question here, and I think we probably only have time for a couple more, but here we go, commercial. Edmonton has a lot of flat rooftops on commercial buildings that are begging to be covered in rooftop solar PV. Many of these buildings need a structural assessment to determine if they can support the extra weight of the solar. Is the cost of the structural assessment eligible for the CEIP funding, even if the structure is determined to not be compatible with solar PV? And I think I heard you mention for commercial, they are requiring 3 quotes, and those will each come If it's commercial, those usually come with costs, as they might not in residential. So I guess not just structural assessment, but that whole proposal process, there's supports for that.
If they do go ahead and finance the upgrade, yes, but in the case that she's describing, where if it's deemed that it's not eligible or it's not suitable for solar, they wouldn't be able to. You have to finance the upgrade in order to be able to finance the professional service, the associated professional services or incidental costs.
That's very interesting and could be a real barrier, Barbara, to those MURBs and those multi-unit residential buildings, because we did do a presentation at the last solar show on solar for condos and apartments and whatnot. And I learned through that a lot of them are just not actually appropriate. And once you get up on the roof and realize what the roof looks like on a high rise, you might actually get ruled out. So I guess there is some cost risk associated with some of those who might have roofs that are really not friendly for solar. Barbara?
You know, I guess if your target is solar on the roof and that's your only target, but if you're doing a feasibility study on the whole building and identifying all of the opportunities, then, you know, chances are we're going ahead. We could be going ahead with the windows, doors, insulation, boiler, even if solar is deemed inappropriate for this, and the feasibility study could in fact be financed, but you would have to go ahead and finance with the program, and then it can be rolled in, even if you don't take all of the recommendations or solar isn't possible.
Excellent point. I hadn't thought of. That's right. Just because something ends up not being solar ready or solar appropriate doesn't mean there's not more work to be done. Justin, anything to add on that one?
Nope. We're still in our infancy in the commercial sector, so
yeah,
would not. I don't have a lot of data to go on.
No, but I think by next year when we come back to this conversation, we'll have multiple. Are there any others exploring commercial right now, Stephanie? I know Edmonton has
Sturgeon County has an active commercial program currently, so non-residential and farmland.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. And I did have one final question based on your presentation, Stephanie, just to wrap us up today. And if other people have questions that we didn't get to, please do reach out to Barbara and Justin and Stephanie and be in touch with them over email. My final question was just around that farms piece, because we do get a lot of farmers calling in. And I noticed that commercial operations are eligible for $1 million, but if you're a farmer, you're only eligible for 300,000. And I know a lot of farmers are going to be calling in saying, why aren't we treated like a business? So the government of Alberta
legislation sets that cap. Yeah.
So if the farmers would like $1 million, they need to contact the GOA. That's very helpful for me to know, because it feels very odd in Alberta where we don't usually discriminate against farmers that way. So that's helpful context, and I will let them know that wasn't a decision that any of the three of you were a part of. So that's helpful context. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for this amazing discussion. I love the Q&A time. We have great questions today from a wonderful audience. The three of you were such a source of information, and I feel ready now to go out and answer a million questions on these programs, because we sure get a lot of them. And thanks so much to Todd and Simple Solar for making this all possible. And of course, to all of our members for joining us today and making solar and also energy efficiency happen in Alberta. It's an exciting time here, and I think that this program is here to stay. And so I'm really excited to have you speaking about a program that has some longevity. I believe it was first developed when the PCs were in power, if I'm not mistaken. I remember some drafting was occurring, and the NDP were the ones who tweaked it, and then I think the UCP were the ones who enacted it. So I feel like this program has some sticking power. No, I got that wrong.
The legislation was passed by the NDP government.
Okay, for some reason I thought it went through royal assent later, but anyways, I do feel like it's got sticking power, and I feel like Alberta can get behind low interest, long-term sustainable financing. So hopefully this one won't be like the grants where they're here today, gone tomorrow. So thanks so much. Appreciate you taking the time. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all again at our next seminar.